This is called Millennium Blues, and it's kind of like my view of what's happened in my lifetime. Mama's been laid off. My papa's been laid off. My brother's been laid off for more than 2 years now. Who can't get a job? Billy can't get a job. So we gotta listen to the blues. Mother Earth, there is something I must tell you. I must tell you that your children are suffering. In the moment you had prepared for them, many rooms, space, and time collided. The earth stood still while the ocean kissed the sky, leaving a trail of tears that has plagued your prosperity since birth. In Cuba, they cried. In Selma, they cried. In Natchez, Mississippi, they cried. In Hanoi and Cambodia, they cried. In Angola, Botswana, and Uganda, they cried. But I wrote it down, I wrote it down, I wrote it down, I wrote it down. Like a lioness, I wrote it down. Rivers I've known through streams of consciousness. So loud that even the shadow dwelling in the valley of death would read my mind and not forget. Bombs bursting in midair, rocket missiles with red glare, giving proof to the night the contempt we all share. Oh, say does that bullet-riddled banner yet wave in the land of the free, but the home of the slaves? Inexcusable red, white, and brutalities, blood-blotched ink stains on the turning pages of history. So it's been written as it's been done. But mother, they still cried. In South Africa, for Biko, they cried. In Beirut, they cried. In Tiananmen, they cried. In Belfast and Dublin, they cried. In Nicaragua, y por los desaparecidos, they cried. In Los Angeles, they cried. But again, I wrote it down, I wrote it down, I wrote it down. Street corner alleys over spray-painted walls of hiero graffiti. Prophetic visions from the weak and the needy, yet the huddled masses are still tired and hungry. Despair now lines the pockets of philosophical indifference and political unrest. So if things come apart at the seams, if things really fall apart by what seems, well, it seems like the apple has fallen much too far from the tree. When did the breath above our heads become someone's airspace? When did stories told in sea waves become international waters? Are we Feng Shui or Sinn Fein? Is it just us or ourselves alone? So in the moment that it takes a village to bomb a child, any child, I wield my pen like an adversarial sword, cutting through the chaos and corruption to write. To right the wrongs, I write it down, I write it down. To right the wrongs, to write it down, I write the wrongs, I write the wrongs. To write it down of ship-splitting submarines and wounded knees. Shattered nuclear arms and bodies hung from trees. With literary logic that outwits the new millennium mathematics being. If a steamroller bulldozing an African village travels at the same rate of speed as a pickup truck traveling with a caged bird chained to its wheels, which is 3 times the number of seconds it takes a bomb to explode in the Catholic provinces of Ireland, times the sum of the number of sticks and stones hurled at Israeli soldiers in the West Bank, divided by the number of Congolese and uprisings, plus medical embargoes to countries afflicted with superpower syndrome, multiplied by the square root of United Nations military coup of dictatorships set up and sponsored by them, then just how many times does 41 go into 1? Fred Hampton would tell you then what Amadou would say now if he could. But I digress. Mr. Horowitz did raise an interesting point, yes. Can reparations truly repair nations burned and looted by Babylon? So, Mother, I must tell you, your children, we are still crying. In Gaza, we're crying. In Rwanda, we're crying. In Iran, we're crying. In Iraq, we're crying. In Mattapan Square, we're crying. Right down in Dudley, we're crying. In Orchard Park, we're crying. But in remembrance, I write it down to right the wrongs, to right the wrongs. I write it down to right the wrongs. Thank you.